He is right now former Speaker of the House, my former congressman from Georgia's 6th District. In fact, we followed him. I've told you this story 100 times. He used to be my congressman in just southwest of Atlanta, and then he moved, and we moved with him so that he could still be our congressman. We moved to Roswell. He was in Marietta. Joining us now, Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, always great to have you, man.
Well, it's great to be with you, and Calista and I are really looking forward to coming tomorrow to the William and Mary bookstore and being with folks in Williamsburg, so it's just great to be back with you.
Okay, now, so everybody knows the Speaker and Mrs. Gingrich, Calista, they're going to be at the College of William and Mary bookstore, which is on the Duke of Gloucester Street, obviously on the campus of William and Mary in Williams. They're going to be signing their new books. Calista has Ellis the Elephant, Hail to the Chief, and the Speaker, his new book out, Treason. Always good to have you back in the heart of Virginia.
Well, it's such a remarkable area, and if you love history the way both Calista and I do, you just get a special excitement when you have a chance to come to Williamsburg.
Let's get to a little politics. I was thinking about this last night, Mr. Speaker. Remember when you first got to be Speaker, you never neglected your constituents in the 6th District. Remember when you would have those, they were called Newt Gingrich fly-ins, I believe, the fly-ins? And
right.
First one, you were just Speaker. First one we went to, you were Speaker about 5-6 weeks, maybe a month. And I'll never forget, you said, I got up here and everybody kept asking me what I was going to do. And I kept saying, well, I'm going to do exactly what my contract says. And they were like, no, what are you really going to do? And I remember in that meeting with us, you said that the elites and the bureaucracy don't care what you said to get the power. They think they can manipulate you once you're in there. I remember you said that like after a month. And I would assume the same thing is happening now with President-elect Trump, isn't it?
Sure, I think it is. And one of the reasons I like so much his going out to the country, his getting back with the people who elected him, is it reminds him that he's not by himself. He's leading an army. Millions and millions of Americans rejected the elite media, rejected social pressure, rejected everything they were told by the elites, and they decided they wanted a guy who was going to change Washington. So I'm sure that when I happened to talk to Vice President Pence yesterday afternoon, I could feel the excitement that they'd had in Indiana, how excited they were to be going to Cincinnati, and the size of the crowd last night, the enthusiasm, all of this rebuilds the energy level, rebuilds the commitment, and strengthens the confidence of the newly elected president-elect. I think that's a very, very important part of the presidency, is to know that you represent the people and that therefore you can deal with the bureaucracy from a position of strength.
So, Mr. Speaker, what about all this talk about how Trump is softening and he's not really going to do what he said? I mean, he gets to Cincinnati last night. I'm sure you saw the speech, and he basically tripled down on every key promise he made, along with his contract for America, tripled down on all of them, from getting out of these wars to getting rid of ISIS to putting up a wall to clamping down on these work visas, stealing U.S. jobs, not letting jobs go away, triple down on all of them. And he does it in a rally and goes just basically outside the media. How did you react to that speech last night, sir?
Well, I thought, first of all, it was classically Trump. And I think people are going to be surprised. This is not a guy who got to be worth $10 billion because he was confused. This is somebody who has thought long and hard. He clearly has evolved over the last year and a half. He's no longer just a businessman. He's now the president-elect. He understands it's a huge, huge job. And I think that came, a little surprised. We chatted about it. Clifton and I met with him last week, and he was saying, it's a little bit bigger implication, not just the job, but the moral burden of the Oval Office, of being where Abraham Lincoln was, of having the weight of the nation. That stuff is sinking in, which is good. It should be. But I think it's sinking in, and not in how is he going to give up what he wants to do. It's sinking in and how is he going to get it done. And I think you're going to see a very determined and I think very competent president. And he showed it with this carrier thing. I write two newsletters a week at GingrichProductions.com that people can get for free. And I also do a lot of Facebook Lives. And I just finished this morning drafting one on this carrier decision. You know, the 1,100 families in Indiana who are going to have a dramatically better Christmas because President-elect Donald Trump didn't wait to be sworn in. At a time when President Obama was laughing at him, ridiculing him, saying, I guess he's going to wave a magic wand. Well, he did. He waved the magic wand of picking up the telephone, talking to the CEO, getting him to agree to stay, and 1,100 families are better. And that sends a signal to every working family in America that finally they have a candidate who's about to become president who cares about them. That's a huge shift from where we've been.
I mean, it's transformational, right? No question. Let's get to the private candlelight Mitt Romney dinner. A lot of us very upset for what Romney said. But, Mr. Speaker, a lot of Romney's comments, they were directed at Trump, but they were also directed at people like me and our listeners, that basically he said we were if we were voting for Trump, we were basically too stupid to have a job. That's essentially what he said. We were being conned and we were just dumb. Don't you think a choice and the whole dinner, the candlelight thing, what is up with that?
Well, first of all, if President-elect Trump picks Mitt Romney, I'm for Mitt Romney. I mean, the President-elect has the prerogative of having a cabinet he's comfortable with. Now, I'm opposed to Romney. I think it's a huge mistake. I think in some ways it's funny. I told people they had to have Romney come along because it was a French restaurant and he could translate the menu. You know, but I refuse to take it seriously. And let me just suggest two thoughts for you. First, Trump is occasionally going to throw an interception. It's going to happen. The fact is, this is a guy who's a rollout quarterback who throws deep. He's always on offense. He's always trying to score points. When you have that kind of personality, every once in a while you got to throw an interception. Now you can say, okay, he's had so far a great cabinet. I mean, the people he's picking are absolutely first-rate people. Some of them, frankly, astound me that he's able to get them. Getting a Jim Mattis to be Secretary of Defense, getting somebody like Betsy DeVos, who has spent millions of dollars fighting for the right of children in poor neighborhoods to have schools that work. I mean, these are great picks. He may pick a clunker, and then if he picks Romney, in my judgment, he'll pick the clunker. The one clunker out of a cabinet's not a disaster. And second, remember, he is going to have to do a lot to make me so disappointed that I wish Hillary had won. So I'm going to stick with Trump through thick and thin. I'm going to be with him when he's right. I'm going to be with him when he's wrong, because he is so much better than what we would have gotten had the election gone the other way, that I'm grateful to him for taking the beating, going out there, giving up was a very soft, very positive life. You know, he could have golfed and flown around in his private airplane the rest of his life. He decided to serve the country. So, you know, I'm happy to be a shield bearer and stand there next to him. And occasionally he's going to goof. I hope on the Secretary of State he picks somebody like Rudy Giuliani, who'd be dramatically better than Mitt. But if he does pick Mitt, I'm going to swallow deep and say, all right, I'm still right here carrying the shield.
Are we going to see a formal role in this administration for Speaker Newt Gingrich?
Well, the Wall Street Journal yesterday wrote a very nice editorial talking about a Gingrich commission to rethink the entire government. And that's close to what I want to do. I've talked to both President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect Pence that I didn't want any one cabinet job, because I want to have the freedom to look at the entire government, both at the federal and state level and down to local communities. I'm talking today to the American Legislative Exchange Council, which is state legislators, and I'm really trying. I'll give a speech on December 13th at Heritage on the principles of Trumpism, because I'm really trying to think through, if we've crossed a watershed from the liberal welfare state model of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which survived for 84 years, then what is this new system like? And if you were a governor or a state legislature that was totally Republican, and there are 25 of them now, how would you be implementing Trumpism at your level? What are the opportunities we have to dramatically change the federal government? And there are many. We can get back to a balanced budget. We can have a leaner, more honest, more effective government if we're prepared to take on some very tough fights. the way that Scott Walker did in Wisconsin.
Right.
And Walker, in some ways, ought to be the prototype for where we need to go.
Mr. Speaker, back in the day when you first took over Speaker, 95, I remember going to you one other time and you gave a presentation on the fact that the whole entitlement process we have, starting with Medicaid and Medicare, was basically going to run out of money. I think back then you were saying it was like 2035. I doubt that's changed. Have you had a serious discussion with President-elect Trump about the fact that if you don't get entitlement reform, eventually this thing, as you were saying in the 90s, is simply going to run out of money?
Well, we've talked about particularly the most difficult of the entitlements, which is Medicare. And I wrote a book called Saving Lives and Saving Money in 2002 on this whole question of how do you rethink the health system. Enormous opportunities to save money, enormous opportunities to have better health, better outcomes, to have a system that's better for the patient and the doctor. And we've talked about that. But let me make a different point about this. All of these models are static. They all assume a weak, slow growth economy where, what Reagan did, when you get up to 5, 6, 7% growth a year, the sheer increase in wealth drowns a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
And we did the same thing in the 90s. We had a dramatic, I think we tripled the stock market during the period that the Republicans took over after 94. Mm-hmm. And that led to so much creation of extra money that it enabled us to balance the federal budget. It was a combination of controlling spending while dramatically increasing revenue, not by tax increases, ironically, but by tax cuts, which we had the largest capital gains tax cut in history when I was Speaker, and it led to just an explosion of new jobs and new companies and new opportunities. So if we can get a real growth in our economy, that frankly solves a great deal of the entitlement problem. And then we've got to have a conversation as a country about certain transitions. We adopted the Social Security system at a time when the average person died before they were old enough to get Social Security. We now have some people who are living 50 years on Social Security. Nobody ever tried to design systems like this. And we're going to have to really rethink our whole approach. And frankly, as people do more mental work and less physical work, they work longer. Somebody like a Henry Kissinger is now working in his 90s. Mm-hmm. And then would be horrified if you said to him, no, Henry, you've got to quit and just sit there and do nothing. And he would die very quickly if you made him do that because he loves, he works at what he loves doing. So I think we're going to have to rethink the whole contract and in ways that are different. But I think we have to do it with the American people. We can't try to impose things the way Obama did.
And are you going to be involved in sharing your thoughts on prison and justice reform with the president-elect, Mr. Speaker, that you were really one of the first guys in America to understand what's happening with our incarceration rates, and that's kind of gone off the radar screen.
Right. Well, absolutely, and it's made more complicated by the failure of liberal policies in places like Chicago. Mm-hmm. Chicago just passed 700 murders this year, and we still have all of December. It's horrifying what's happening to Americans in Chicago. And so that makes it harder to get people to pay attention to the appropriate prison reforms that are real, something I'll be talking with Attorney General Sessions about once he's sworn in, because a lot of it comes in his zone. And it's something I'm certainly going to be talking about to state legislatures and governors. We know, for example, that in Georgia, where Governor Deal's been an absolute leader in this field, we have fewer prisons. We have more people back at work. We are saving families, and people are having a chance to pay for their crime, but also to be part of their family and part of the work community. And it's very important that we recognize how much damage we've done, particularly in the African-American community, by taking several million young people for nonviolent crimes and putting them in situations where they're basically in universities of criminality rather than in schools teaching them how to have honest jobs. So I'm very much still committed to the idea that we have to have criminal justice reform and that the concept of being right on crime is both good for human beings and good for the taxpayer.
All right, Mr. Speaker, we're almost out of time. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, Speaker Gingrich and his wife, Callista Gingrich, they're going to be at the College of William and Mary bookstore This is on the college campus of William and Mary in Williamsburg. More information on their stuff, gingrichproductions.com. And they're going to be there for pictures, for book signing. The speaker's new book, Treason. Also, Callista's one of her new books out. And Ellis the Elephant is going to be there. As long, Mr. Speaker, as you're out of cutting down the tree business, right? That's the main thing I'm concerned about. When I was your neighbor back in the day, you and your neighbor tried to cut down a tree.
It was a very funny story. And we were all three college professors. None of us had any idea what we were doing. And we cut the tree down in such a way that it fell on our neighbor's house, making his wife very angry because she had told us when we started, hire a professional who knows what they're doing. And being typical college professors said, oh, no, we got this all. We understand it. Well, we didn't.
I don't know how I remember all this stuff, Mr. Speaker, is beyond me, but I remember you guys trying to do that tree, and it actually fell down the wrong way because you couldn't get it back.
I know, the tree was leaning the wrong way, and we didn't know what we were doing. Not complicated.
And it fell on the guy's house. Mr. Speaker, thanks for being with us, sir.